What's up, guys? So we are probably about to approach full-on sprint mode with regards to the Oscars in about a week now. So for the next stretch, it's going to be strictly Oscar movies here. And in that vein, so last time I looked at Amelia Perez and the lost potential in the central relationship of Amelia Perez and Jesse. And thinking to transition from that into another sort of relationship of lost potential portrayed in A Complete Unknown, which is the Bob Dylan movie. And I want to preface this review as well as I'm going to do 2 videos on this, that this is a biopic, so these are real people. I am not looking at like full-on historical context. I'm not looking to do a deep psychoanalysis on the aspects of the real people, because especially people that are still alive. So we're only looking at what is portrayed in the film and what the film is trying to say about these things. And this is going to be on the Bob Dylan and Sylvie. And like, we know that like Sylvie is a fictional name, but she's an amalgamation of several of Bob Dylan's girlfriends at the time. So only looking at the film that that's in a complete unknown. And yeah, so let's get started on that. And in terms of health and lost potential, that's what we're talking about here, because in the film their relationship is portrayed as kind of like the stable relationship that you'll often see characters or leads in romantic comedies sort of like grow out of and start pursuing something that's more exciting and all that kind of stuff. And what I like about their relationship, especially shown in the latter half of the film, is that in the context of the artistic development, she is probably one of the only few people in the film, and maybe the only woman, who really got to know him before he was famous, even though he still wasn't about, revealing himself or talking about his past or anything, but she did know him. Like, she liked him for him, not just as a figure. And the fact that the film is suggesting towards the second half that is something that should have been cherished when there was a chance to. And that then by the end it's realistically too late. And I like that sort of through line, but there's still infidelity. And it's the 1960s. At some level, it's a different time, or a time when it was a lot of loose rules when it came to that stuff. And that would feel okay if, in the context of the film, Sylvie knew about it. So if it's a case where, like, Sylvie knew, but she kind of has figured out implicitly, but it's never talked about. But if it was really talked about, that, like, he, has other trysts when he's on tour, and, like, asks her if she's okay with that, and then over time it turns out she isn't, and then that becomes, like, a full-on communicative thing. Then especially because we're talking about the 60s, when that kind of stuff was, like, pretty omnipresent. I'd be talking green here. Maybe a little higher, but probably green, considering the baseline elements of their relationship do seem healthy, but she doesn't know, and the fact that the stuff with, like, Joan Baez, and I'm guessing in terms of historical context means there's others too. No. Like, you can't go, I'm going to give health a white for that reason. But I'm also not going to go, like, lower into the unhealthy territory because in the end Sylvie walks away. I think if at the end she sees that there's still feelings, not feelings, but stuff that still exists between Dylan and Baez, and, like, recognizes that it's too much for her to deal with, even though the feelings and the attraction and the implicit desire for rekindling is there, she can't do it. And she can't do that life. Like, had she, like, lied to herself there and stayed, and, gets worse all the, then they're talking, like, sort of into unhealthy territory, but, like, it stops there, I think, before it fully escalates into that realm. But because there was infidelity that was covert, you can't go higher than a white, even though, like my Amelia Perez video, there's a recognition of lost potential and authenticity, like, oh, maybe this really could have been the thing, that shouldn't have been taken for granted. And getting to the believability section, I would say all that is believable. And, like, especially, like, with regards to, like, his pace, right? That as he ascends into the artistic spectrum, he drifts further and further away from her, but then begins to go so high that now all he's seen as is this figure, and then actually starts to miss the sort of grounding that she provided. And, like, the pace of, like, their initial attraction and their initial breakup, and her still trying to be kind to him and still having some boundaries, and then the attempt to rekindle, like, all that's great. But, and this is why I'm going to give believability a green and not higher, is because I would have wanted to see slightly more stuff about her. They probably left her kind of a, like, an archetypal figure almost, because, like, she's an amalgamation of real people. But, like, other than, I think there's a couple throwaway lines about her parents when they first meet, and we know she travels there for that summer. But otherwise, we don't know a whole lot about her side that, like, what maybe it was the dynamic on her side that made her, you know, begin to fall for him initially and then like miss him later and all that other stuff, which like we don't really hear about. I mean, it's a biopic on him, obviously, so the focus is going to be on him, but that, like, we'll get to when it gets to the Joan Baez video. On their side, there's a clear like attempt at like mutualism on both of their sides. So on the Sylvie section, like Green feels accurate because like the pace of their relationship feels believable, but there's a piece missing about her side. Does it matter though? Yes. And it matters, I'm giving that a blue, because this is a trend that I've seen in cinema, like lately over the past 4 or 5, maybe 10 years, I don't know, in which, unlike in like the early mid-2000s when the stable relationship was always portrayed as boring, and it was always portrayed as something that it's, you know, empowering to escape from and like chase after something more exciting and blah blah, which like usually in real life like doesn't work, and shown in this film that like it doesn't work in this one either, but it continues a trend of films showing that, you know, maybe that sort of boring, grounded, stable relationship that you had before stuff picked off or real stuff changed drastically and all that kind of stuff, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that stable, grounded thing is something to be cherished. And I have plenty of thoughts when it comes to like how romances are portrayed in film. That's why I'm doing this channel. But this trend that I have been seeing lately of showing that, and it's shown in this film in like the latter half, that like both of them miss what used to be, even though it ends up being too late. And all of that is important to show to the world. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. And I'm going to go right into the other side of this. We're going to do the Joan Baez video like right next, and we'll also release later today. So these are going to happen back to back. So, and again, it's a historical movie. These are real people. I'm only talking about what's being portrayed in the film. Do not, you know, extrapolate anything that I said or what is said out there as, you know, excuses to make assumptions about the real person. Like, because this is a film. It is a biopic, but films of biopics are still films, and sometimes liberties are taken, but from the film's portrayal, these tenets do feel accurate. Alright. Thank you all for watching. Hope it was moderately insightful. And see you next time. Cheers.